Hello and a very warm welcome to the late-breaking F1 podcast presented by Harry Eade, Sam Sage, and me, Ben Hocking, reviewing today the Azerbaijan Grand Prix around the streets of Baku and a win for Max Verstappen from pole position, joined on the podium by George Russell and following his second-place starting position, Carlos Sainz for Williams. A rather unexpected podium. No McLaren to be found. No Ferrari to be found. Okay, not that surprising. But we had a bit of an interesting top three. Sam, tyres, they went, didn't they?
No, they keep on wenting. They keep on going, Benjamin. They don't stop going. I don't want to say that we're all right at this, but we maybe did call that the next time Max Verstappen would win would be at the Baku Grand Prix. We do get the odd thing occasionally right. One of you two as well. Say it in your actual poll 1, 2, 3 as well.
I got something right.
Well done. Good shout. Well done, Benjamin. At least one of us got something right this weekend. It was a topsy-turvy weekend. We had that thrilling qualifying, which went on so long that I could even make it. And thank you, Ben, for holding down the fort again. But then we get a race that after lap one just turned into no strategy, tyres going on forever. And the strategy was just so dull, unfortunately, even with this DRS train that you have had 2 or 3 of up and down the grid. Harry, you've been on expedition after expedition this week. Were you looking forward to coming back for a fun Grand Prix? Did it deliver?
I was, and I was watching qualifying on my phone while sat in Edinburgh Airport, and it went on so long that I was still watching Q3 whilst we were taxiing, and I still didn't see the end of it because we were in the air. I was like, we couldn't see it. So I thought, well, at least I've got today. And as you say, after lap one, nothing. That was it. So thank you for that. I must always watch in Edinburgh Airport now to make it exciting, it seems.
Depending on the time of your flight, you could have watched Q1 at Edinburgh Airport, got on the plane, and Q2 would have just started.
I did think this. I was like, I'm going to land, and they'll still be trying to do Q3 at this rate. So
it was longer than last year's race. What a ridiculous session.
Yes. 6 red flags in yesterday's qualifying session, none today, only one safety car that made an appearance on the first lap. More about that a little bit later on. But let's start out front with Max Verstappen. The first time this season that he's managed to secure back-to-back victories. Two very dominant victories. We didn't see a lot of Verstappen today, but that's because he wasn't under a lot of fret for pretty much the entirety of this Grand Prix. A Grand Slam win, if I'm not mistaken, in that he had the fastest lap, led every lap from pole. How impressed were you with what he was able to do?
You can just copy and paste whatever I say in Monza because it was sensational again. You run out of ways to describe just how good this man is at driving a race car very quickly around a racetrack. It feels like the Red Bull has very certain characteristics, and when they go down an experimental route that pushes the car in a certain direction, namely heavy braking, traction, straight line speed. And you saw that throughout the family of cars as well. Tsunoda was holding on relatively well, but unfortunately had Lawson in front of him, who also had a very slippery car in a straight line. It looks like the way that this family of cars in the Red Bull group has been developed, it really suits these characteristics. And when you have such a crazy qualifying as you did, which means that most of your key players have been taken out of the game, Max Verstappen will always prevail. He's going to rise to the top. The cream always does. And there he was. And I'm not saying it was easy for him, but when all of the key players, all your key rivals have been taken out and Russell's going to make his way through and Piastri's out and Norris can't get through traffic and the Ferraris are being Ferraris, you kind of have to give it to Verstappen that he's just been head down, job done, does what a multiple world champion does, and he draws level on Grand Slams with Lewis Hamilton. Only, I think, Jim Clark in front of them both now, which is, a real achievement for him in his career with so much left to do. Blown away by just how calm and well executed this was at every single moment with the wind, the threat of rain. We saw how many incidents took place across qualifying. A slight slip up at any point could have thrown this away, and it never, ever looked in doubt. Max Verstappen, what a beast.
Harry, I don't think going into the last 2 races we were overly disappointed with how 2025 was playing out, but we might have said once or twice, it'd be great if we could have something close to 2024. Did we misspeak and just say 2023? Because the last 2 races feels very much like that from Verstappen.
Yeah, I mean, they said this in the Sky commentary, but again, like in Monza, it was a very 2023-esque victory for Verstappen. Just just ran off and hid. But it's hard to say whether if he hadn't had, Sainz and Lawson directly behind, whether it would have been the same. But I think it might have been, because I think he had more pace in it, as evidenced by the fact he did the fastest lap on lap 50 of 51. I think he had more pace in that car all afternoon. So you heard GP. It's a good day for Max Verstappen when you only hear GP on the radio and there's no response from him. Just a couple of messages, just like, this is good, chip away. Nothing from Max at all afternoon till he won. So, it was just clinical Verstappen. Like you said, Sam, a lot of the work was done in qualifying yesterday, where he was superb to get that pole position. And for there, never looked back. And he always had the option to do whatever he wanted strategy wise. He was never going to be undercut, and then he could stay out as long as he wanted. He was the last one to pit, I think. And then he could do what he wants. So I'd like to maybe retract what I said in the midweek episode about people who think Verstappen could win the championship are Bortoletto / delusional.
You won't be wrong. He still does think that. It's just maybe there are a few more others on top.
Very true. But yeah, he is that good that never count him out. Never count him out, Verstappen.
At your what, Harry? Count him out at your what?
Say the line, Harry.
Say the line. Your peril, blooming peril. I'm going to name a town after you and call it Peril.
You imagine Cheryl from Peril. Verstappen, very good. I honestly, I don't have a lot to say about it, and that's just how good he was. I said a lot of how good he was in qualifying yesterday, and a lot of that just applies, but in a race circumstance today. You never felt like he was under any pressure. He wasn't under any pressure, and yes, maybe the way in which the rest of the grid panned out helped him a little bit, in that Russell needed some time to get by his teammate and Liam Lawson via strategy, and Ferrari did Ferrari things and McLaren did McLaren things. And it kind of just left Verstappen out front to run his own race, and he didn't need to strategically think about what to do. It was always going to be a case of wait until Russell pit the lap after him, and just ensure, double check that there wasn't going to be anything safety car wise that was going to ruin this one for him and the team. And ultimately, it was a race that was filled with very, very few incidents. Another one where tyres weren't much of a factor, and it was a one stop that helped Verstappen and Red Bull to victory. I'm still questioning where there is more tyre wear, whether Verstappen can keep up this dominant form. But on the day today, he had no competition whatsoever, thanks to how great he was. So, great result. Mercedes had a very good day. They move up to second in the Constructors' Championship as a result of Russell finishing second and Antonelli finishing in fourth place. We saw both of them go up against Liam Lawson early on in this Grand Prix. Mercedes using that 2-on-1 advantage to essentially force Lawson to cover off Antonelli, whereas Russell went far longer into this race. Ultimately, it is that strategy, the latter, that works out well for Russell as he gets on the podium. Antonelli just missing out. But Sam, let's start on the Russell side of the conversation. Wasn't very well this weekend whatsoever. I referred to this on the qualifying episode. If you heard him in FP1 giving feedback on team radio, man sounded like he was on his deathbed. But he persevered throughout the weekend, delivers a great result. How do you think that went for him? And what did you think of Merck's strategy to leave him out as long as they did?
If you ignore Canada, I think this might be his best performance across the entire season so far. He started really shakily. It didn't go too well for him. It looked like he was getting caught up behind Antonelli, which was surprising. And the way that the duels were happening, it meant that he was stuck behind the likes of Lawson and Antonelli wasn't. And you think, is this the shifting point? Has it swapped for this Grand Prix where Antonelli might get the kind of the rub of the green and Russell is going to be stuck, and the Mercedes is often a bit slower in a straight line and they can't get past people where they need to? But he was great. The hard tyre, the option to choose the hard tyre, I definitely think was the preferred strategy. That, for me, is the one that I would want to be on. I think the run long, go to medium, and be quick on the mediums at the end of the race was the right thing to do. And that allowed them to do what you mentioned, which is to bait Lawson into kind of being covered off by Antonelli. They had their little duel, their little moment. And it worked out for the best for both drivers in the end, both beating Lawson coming in the Grand Prix. So I think the strategy call from Russell, from Mercedes, was right. And I really enjoyed that he preempted what his engineer said by saying, I want to run longer. The hards are good. You saw just how limited, I've already moaned already, but how limited the tyre wear was. Those tyres could just keep going. The hard tyres weren't going anywhere. It's a great race tyre, and the wear was just so minimal that you could see the gaps weren't going down at all. It was just continuing to grow and grow and grow. So make the most of that while you can, especially with this rumored threat of rain potential on the horizon, especially as we know in Baku that more often than not, the longer you wait in a Grand Prix, the higher the chance of picking up a safety car. And when you're growing that gap anyway, you may as well play, safe. You may as well take away the risk, which I think Russell did brilliantly. Got on the back of Antonelli. I'm glad they did the swap. I think that was really sensible from Mercedes, and they didn't dilly-dally. No silliness. We've seen them do it previously where they kind of, bit of this, bit of that. McLaren, take note. Get on with it. Rip off the Band-Aid. Make the call. And they did it really, really well. And a brilliant performance from them. I was a bit gutted that Antonelli couldn't get on that podium, but I wouldn't want to sacrifice Sainz for that one. I do think it would have helped Antonelli's confidence even more so. But Russell today was phenomenal. After we got out of the little debacle in the first couple of laps where he was fluxing around those positions and not staying where he should have been, he moved up so well. And I was so impressed with him. I do think, apart from the wing, this is his best performance so far.
Harry, what did you make of the races of both Antonelli and Russell?
Yeah, it was clear Mercedes has some good pace. Again, colder street circuit. They kind of just like it, don't they? So watch out, Las Vegas. Yeah, I thought Russell's pace was really good. He survived the slightly attempted murder by his teammate into turn one, which was good stuff.
Yeah.
But I think even from that, even from the fact that he just swore with nothing else was very telling. But yeah, even from that move, it was clear he had the pace over Antonelli and the few others in front of him. So he made his way back, and then they made the right call. The strategy. I know the tires were they could still be running on them, quite frankly, but he managed that well. In typical George Russell style, was sort of making the calls from the cockpit. Enjoyed his race engineer saying, yeah, I was about to say the same thing. Yeah, no, you weren't. Whatever, mate.
No,
Many times have I done that to a manager at work. I was about to have the same thought. Good call.
Yeah, I had the same idea. It was on the tip of my tongue.
You just got there before me.
But yeah, so once again, Russell driving that from the cockpit, but it was the correct call. I think they probably would have got past Sainz either way if they'd undercut or not. But I think we saw with Leclerc and somewhat with Sainz, although Sainz obviously held on, the undercut or going early, that first pit stop, or your only pit stop, wasn't really the right call. So I think they played that well. So good race from Russell, good race from Antonelli, what he's needed for quite some time. Like you said, so I'm probably not going to criticize him too much for not getting past Sainz in the end, because Sainz was genuinely quick. It wasn't the case of he was lucky to be there. He had a lot of pace, and also Antonelli in that latter half of the race had older tires anyway. So a good solid result around for Mercedes. And as you said, they played the team game well. I like the use of dilly dally, by the way. That needs to be brought up more.
Thank you, sir.
Good phrase.
Agreed. And I'm going to leave my point there. Nothing else needs to be said about Mercedes. I just agree on the dilly-dally point. Yeah, excellent from both of them. I thought Russell, even with physically struggling throughout the weekend, he pulled off the best race that he could have done given the circumstance. The key of today, and not just for Mercedes, was don't get stuck in traffic. We saw plenty of midfield drivers that we might get onto later on in the episode. We saw the likes of the Ferraris and Lando Norris really get caught up in traffic. And even if they did have a pace advantage, they really struggled to show it and to make it count. So the key strategically was always going to be go long, or basically don't get stuck in the middle, because otherwise you are going to get caught in these DRS trains. Russell and Mercedes played that to perfection. From Antonelli's side, okay, it's not his best result of the season. I think there is a case to say it's his best race, though. Canada was great as well, don't get me wrong, but I think this might be on a par with it, because at least in Canada, you had George Russell fairly comfortably winning that race. And I think Mercedes were even stronger there than they were here. Here, it was a bit more up for debate. Like Verstappen had a pretty clear advantage out front. Yes, Russell had to make the overcut work, but Antonelli was there or thereabouts. And like you say, Harry, I don't hold it against Antonelli too much that he couldn't get past Carlos Sainz, because I think that pace was pretty genuine from the Williams this weekend. So good work from both of them. Speaking of Carlos Sainz, a first podium for Williams, a first podium that isn't in a shortened race for Williams for many a year. We're going 8 years back into the past for that one. We know, Sam, that throughout this season, Carlos Sainz has been the least effective of the two Williams drivers. In some instances, you'd put that down to luck. In other instances, you'd just have to say Albon has been the better driver. This weekend, though, Albon's had a lot of highlights this year, but Carlos Sainz currently claims the top spot of Williams highlights for this season with that third place finish, only dropping back one place from where he qualified. How impressive was that?
Can you believe that it was Lance Stroll at this track 8 years ago that was their last full race podium? That is horrific as a statistic. Thank goodness he's come along and changed that one. Yeah, absolute smooth operation. That's his first smooth operation, as he proudly announced over the team radio. And I loved that they were playing it outside in the podium in the pit lane at full volume as he was running to his team. That was so brilliant. Great moment for F1. Great moment for Carlos, because he has been needing it, as you said, Ben, rightly needing a very strong result. I said in our Discord chat, you can join it, the link's in the description, free to do so, that Carlos needs a win over Albon today. He really needs to capitalise on the way that qualifying went for him. Albon out so early on in qualifying, of course, the first of so many red flags that we saw on the Saturday. And the fact that he was sitting in pole position for so long in Q3, obviously bumped to the side by Max Verstappen. He did a lot of the hard yards on that Saturday by being one of the few to make it through unscathed. And then it looked like, sorry, his voice is breaking. I'm so emotional over Carlos Sainz doing so well.
He did so well. I'm so proud of you, Carlos.
Me as Ian Beale crying over Carlos Sainz. But I'm just so impressed with the actual genuine pace that Williams was able to deliver. I think it helped that, again, it was one of those races where the key competitors had kind of been cast aside before the racing even begun. And the way these DRS trains panned out, he only really had to contend with the Mercedes guys. Tsunoda felt like he was never really going to have the pace to get up to him. We know what Tsunoda's been like this season. Antonelli and Russell were really the two that looked like they were going to challenge him. So to only lose out to one of them, well, he had to deal with a full team up against him. I thought was fantastic. His pace in the early race, up against Max Verstappen, 10, 15 laps in, the gap's only a couple of seconds. And it did start to grow. We saw that. But the difference is Max Verstappen in a Red Bull and Carlos Sainz in a Williams. And it took a lot longer than I was expecting for the lead gap to really start to pull out. Williams executed that strategy fantastically well. They dropped him right into a really nice gap where he needed to come out. Carlos very clear on the comms, don't let this guy undercut us. Unfortunately, that is what happened. But then the way that he kept pulling the gap out to Antonelli at the end on similar tyres, but in a slower car, was just special. It was what we want to see from Carlos Sainz. It was great to see him towards the front again. I thought Antonelli would have the pace to close him down. I thought we'd see that from him today. And I think it's Carlos Sainz who's the difference maker there. So glad to see him on the podium. A well-deserved performance. And hopefully this is the confidence that he needs after a really tricky first season with Williams, really.
Yeah, I mean, based on that, Harry, how big was this for Sainz?
It was a huge result. And like you said, it's not been a great overall year for Sainz, whether that's been through bad luck or his own mistakes. I think it's been a pretty even mix of that. But he's been from Saturday onwards, he's been sensational. And whereas his teammate dropped a bit of a clanger all weekend in a car that I think that was evidently quick, I honestly think both Williams could have been near the podium, or if not, potentially both on it, depending how everything played out. But Sainz is the one that Sainz. They said this in Sky commentary as well. This is exactly what they wanted Sainz for, to be the leader in terms of that sort of high pressure situation near the front of the field. He's been there before. He knows how it works. And yes, I know he said about not being undercut by Russell. They got overcut anyway, so it didn't really matter. But I think that sort of cool head in those situations was one of the main reasons why Williams got him, along with many other options, other reasons, obviously. But Yeah, it was a superb race from him. Well managed. Didn't sort of crack under any pressure from when he came out the pits and Antonelli was directly behind him, because Antonelli did chip away quite quickly at that gap, but managed that well and brought home a very, very deserving podium. Like I said, you can't say that was luck. He did the work in qualifying yesterday and then stuck it out. And I know it looks like from second to third, but we're talking about Williams here. So a very good day and well executed, I think, from Sainz and Williams. So very happy to see them on the podium. My dad is a lifelong fan of Williams. I had a little nervous breakdown back in Cornwall, but I think he's okay.
And a year on from when he suggested that one of them should have been shot for what happened.
Never want to mix words, is Papa Reed.
I mean, there are other texts during the race that he was unhappy about, but he's happy now.
Okay.
So that's good.
Good. So good. Shall we review our bold predictions before we go to our first break? A real mixture here. Well, not a mixture in terms of rightness. We're all wrong, but a real mixture in how we were wrong. Sam, can you remind us what your bold prediction was?
Yeah, I said that Ferrari would be 1-2. They were. They were. Just not in the race.
Friday practice 2, baby.
That's what I was aiming for.
Practice 2
Point
champs.
on the board.
Hey, don't give them ideas. That will be their next social post. Right. Not quite. Harry, somehow you might have been more wrong. You said that there would be 5 passes for the lead of this race. There wasn't a pass for the lead in the pits.
It's the same leader the entire way. So you're welcome, everyone.
What did you say, Ben? What was it?
So annoying. Yuki Tsunoda has his best result of the year. I called it. Apart from I said it'd be a top 5 and not a top 6. And he was right behind Liam Lawson. He was on the cusp of overtaking him a couple of times, which would have made my prediction right that Tsunoda would finish inside the top 5. Instead, he finishes P6.
I think the worst part was he came out the pit lane in front of him.
Yeah.
For a brief moment, you were going to be right.
He was 5th early on in this race as well. Never mind. No scoring this week on bold predictions. We'll see if our luck changes in a couple of weeks' time.
I'll tell you what I'm not looking forward to is the fantasy readout this week. My team has taken an absolute kicking.
Honestly, you might be all right, because I feel like a lot of teams are going to be bad this week. There are a lot of people, me included, that have Piastri and Albon.
What? Yeah, Piastri, Albon, Hadjar, Bortoletto, and Alonso.
Yeah, that's very similar to my team.
Okay, it's rough.
It's going to be an interesting one. We'll give that update midweek.
I've just looked at my projection. That's disgusting. Going to move away from that immediately.
Is there a minus there?
Is there anything but a minus there?
No, that's so bad. Anyway, you'll find out.
Yeah, that's a reason to tune in midweek for sure. McLaren. Now, we've been used to talking about McLaren a lot early in these reviews, talking about a dominant win, a dominant 1-2 finish, a double podium finish. Not today. A real struggle for McLaren, and we'll start with the biggest struggle, which was Oscar Piastri. Didn't have the best qualifying session, made it through to Q3, but then crashed, meaning he would start just P9 in this Grand Prix. Didn't go brilliantly from there. False start, gave him a 5-second time penalty. Didn't get to serve it in the race because he crashed out four corners later. Just locks up going into, I think it was maybe turn 4 or turn 5. Goes off. That's the end of his Grand Prix and breaks a very long streak of finishing in the points as well. Harry, that was something. Are you surprised about what happened to Piastri there?
I'm very surprised because based on the evidence we've seen of the past two and a bit years, that was very unlike Oscar Piastri. The past 48 hours have been real stinky for him. Like, Fuey, that reeks, son. It's the poor McLaren mechanics who rebuilt his car yesterday, and then he throws it in the wall on his own 5 corners. Sorry, not 5 laps, 5 corners into the race. He must be hoping that he's used all his crapness up in one fell swoop.
Not bad
done it all in one
tactic.
weekend.
Honestly, if that race that happens, good race to pick.
And given where his main championship rival finished, a net. I mean, it's not a net gain, but basically a net gain out of this because he's not really lost that much. But yeah, even so, just very uncharacteristic. The false start in itself. I mean, if you're going to false start, at least do it like Fernando Alonso and just sort of carry on.
Just
don't false start, stop an anti-stall, for goodness sake, man. So you end up last. Having said that, you know who's last by turn 1? Before he had that accident, he'd already got back in front of Gasly, which is really funny.
Says a lot.
Great weekend for Alpine.
But yeah, just an absolute stinker for Piastri. Yeah, it seems odd for it to happen, for so many mistakes to happen so consecutively, and for a driver that's been so level-headed for the entirety of this year, you don't want to start saying, "Oh, the pressure's got to him," because I just think this is such an anomaly that it doesn't feel like you can say that yet. But yeah, it can't be afforded to do that again anytime soon. But yeah, he'll walk away from this thankful that the damage is not as bad as it could have been. But I think he does need a little reset before Singapore, because all of the mistakes and the small points lost have all come from him. It's not like he got tangled up with an incident with another driver, or there's something wrong in the pits, or it's a mechanical failure. These were all on him. The crash in quali yesterday, the false start, and then the crash again today, all fall at Piastri's feet. So at least have a little word with himself. Mark Webber will be having many words with him, I imagine. He was there today. I saw a picture of him on the grid. So yeah, it's not the end of the world because of how little the damage has actually been in terms of points. But yeah, he cannot be affording to do that again.
Sam, the good news is we are only 1 DNF away from Oscar Piastri, meaning we can go racing again, the 2 McLarens, as it's now 2-1. So that's great news. No points for Piastri today.
I'm surprised that we didn't get Lando, if you could just put it in the wall so it's fair, please. That's how we go racing here at McLaren. What are you doing? It's the same crash 2 sessions in a row. Different corner, but it's the same crash. He's locked his inside front tyre on a left-hand turn and sailed straight into the barrier. The most miraculous thing about this for Oscar Piastri is, if they were to finish 1-2 and Lando Norris were to win with Piastri second, he would have lost more points. That's a gap of 7. This is a gap of 6. He's actually done better here. He's had a better result than a 1-2 would have been for McLaren. Somehow, he has kind of gotten away with it, which is miraculous. Oscar Piastri kind of hates street circuits. He did well at Saudi, he did well at Miami. But Albert Park, bit of a stinker, didn't do well there. You then go, of course, to Monaco. Had one of his biggest shockers of the season at that point in Monaco. Could barely match his teammate. We then move to Canada. Of course, yes, Lando Norris crashed into the back of him, but no podium again there. And now we come to Baku, and he's out immediately. This is disaster stations. This is all of it done one weekend. You can wrap it up in a big ball of misery, throw it in the bin, sweep it aside. Yeah, move on. Big stinky ball in the big stinky garbage for Oscar Piastri. And you can throw it away, take it to the trash. The good thing for him about this street circuits is there definitely isn't any more coming up on the calendar. Might have Singapore next. So hopefully he kind of removes all of this negativity and he gets his head down and sorts himself out, because we know Piastri is so cool, calm, collected. We know that he handles this pressure so well. Something just wasn't clicking. The whole weekend, it just wasn't right for him. And it was that front left brake that caused him so many problems. So I wonder if there's a setup thing that's going on there that meant he was snatching it at the inside. But to see someone who has been so consistent across just this season, but across their whole career in Formula One, the fact that we were only complimenting him for 3 DNFs his entire Formula One career so far, to then crash out twice in one weekend, it's an anomaly. Hopefully that's all it stays as, and we get back to a big McLaren head-to-head battle next time out in Singapore. So count his lucky stars a little bit that he lost less points than he normally would have done from a second.
Yeah, that was, to state the obvious, pretty rough for Oscar Piastri. The crash in qualifying, and you say that there are similarities between the two crashes he had this weekend, and I would agree with that in the way in which they went down. The one in qualifying, I can at least partly excuse. Like, you are going flat out at that point, trying to secure the best lap time in Q3. He wasn't the only one who did it. Yes, it's still an obvious mistake, but he wasn't the only one. I can understand it. This one, I thought, was a poor decision. Like, I'm not sure what he's trying to achieve. Obviously, the start line, what happened there, not great either. But, okay, there's still the opportunity to recover. He's trying to go around the outside of what is a fairly, tight chicane. And we saw one of the Sauber drivers also pull off a fairly similar move, but there was contact on the exit of that corner. I kind of expect it to go the same way if he does make it through this corner. Like, it's not the sort of place where the risk versus reward factor here. Is there much point in trying that move? It feels far safer to just bide your time and wait for a slightly more obvious opportunity. Around the outside of a corner like that, lap one, cold tyres, track's not, fully there yet. I think the result was not inevitable, but it was entirely possible. And again, even if he does make it through okay, he doesn't lock up, that gap is probably going to close very quickly on the exit. And he might have ended up doing the same thing as whoever went into Ocon, one of the Saubers. Again, like, it might just end up being the same thing. So very poor weekend for Oscar Piastri. No spoilers whatsoever, but power rankings tomorrow, I don't expect he will be achieving a great score. I think in the history of power rankings, which started last year, Sam historically has given out 1 0 out of 10. I don't know if it will be another, because if it's not, it will be fairly close. The other side of the McLaren garage, Lando Norris. 31-point gap between Norris and Piastri heading into this race. Piastri, McLaren, bulletproof reliability and consistency up to this point in the year. Suddenly, lap one, Piastri's out. Golden opportunity for Lando Norris. If he can get on the podium, even P3, he halves the gap between himself and Piastri in the championship. If he can come out with a win somehow, we're talking 6 points separating them again. Instead, he finishes where he qualified. He finishes in 7th place. Sam, this feels like a massive missed opportunity that, knowing what McLaren have done to this point in the season, might not come again.
You couldn't really ask for a better gift, right? You never look a gift horse in the mouth. And this was the open door that Lando Norris needed. After he was unceremoniously booted out of the Dutch Grand Prix due to an engine failure through no fault of his own, and it's made this whole championship battle such an uphill slog for him. This was what you wanted. He must be gleeful in his race car, thinking, he's got in the race. I'm going to get it all back. It swung my way. Only to be stuck behind Lawson and Tsunoda, mucking around in front of him for 20-odd laps. Brilliantly, by the way. Lawson was fantastic. But how unfortunate that the one time his teammate has an absolute bottle and loses his head after jumping the start and then crashing. He can't get past anyone. He can barely make an overtake. The slipstream was bizarre around here at Baku. I think the wind playing a big part into it. It's shifting a lot over the weekend. And I think it made a lot of cars struggle with braking. And I also think it's shifting again. And the traction zone out of 16 is so integral to overtakes around here that if you can't nail that, and it seemed like many couldn't, exits were all over the place. It looked like you were then struggling to get anything done. You need to be within about half a second of the car in front of you to get a pass done. And if they had a car in front of them, it's not impossible to get the move done. The DRS train really was in action this race weekend. And Norris fell so foul to that. He was a victim of the scenario that this race unfolded into. And I can't really blame him too much. He was unlucky with the slow pit stop, which meant that he ended up back behind that Tsunoda fight, because if that goes right, if they even do a normal pit stop, he comes out in front of that group and he maybe finishes in fourth or fifth. Maybe he challenges Antonelli for that fourth place, and that's 12 points he maybe picks up. Even the 10 of fifth will be a bit better. And yet he's stuck there with Lewis Hamilton driving around behind him, going nowhere. So whilst he has to pay the price for qualifying not going the right way, and he has himself for that to blame, that's on him. He should have got the lap in when many didn't. He also did not. The race was a bit of a more tricky situation that didn't unfold in his manner. I can't be too critical of Lando Norris here. It wasn't his best Grand Prix, but I also think the situation of the race didn't go his way.
Harry, your thoughts on Norris?
It is a massive missed opportunity points-wise. I don't think you can say it's anything else. But I think in terms of how the race played out for Norris, I'm kind of with Sam what he's saying here. I'm not sure what more he could have done. The McLaren didn't have any massive pace advantage over any of the cars in front of it this weekend, to be honest. And so therefore, I think the damage was mainly done in qualifying. I think Norris will rue the fact that he never delivered the lap at the end of Q3 yesterday, because it basically locked him into where he finished. The bad pit stop during the race that obviously didn't go his way. Whether that would have benefited him, he potentially might have got past those that he was stuck behind. But even so, that's not, again, it wouldn't have been a huge swing. He would have really wanted to have been at least on the podium winning this race to claw back those points. So it is a missed opportunity. But I understand what Sam's saying. I don't think during the race there was much more he could have done. They tried something different by going super long on those medium tires. It didn't ultimately work out. So can't blame him for that. But I think the blame lies at his performance in Q3 yesterday, to be honest, because I think that sealed his fate.
I'm annoyed by McLaren's struggles today, because it at least somewhat takes attention away from what on earth that was from Ferrari. 8th for Lewis Hamilton, 9th for Charles Leclerc, good for 6 points. So in a day where McLaren have had an absolute disaster in the Constructors' Championship, they've managed to equal the amount of points that McLaren have taken away from this race. Great work, Ferrari. I think maybe the most frustrating thing about this, Sam, is that it felt different. Going into this weekend, or at least after Friday, it felt different. Like Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc led FP2, and not by hundredths of a second. They were a few tenths clear of their rivals. We get to Saturday, and it's just disappeared. And that seemed to then carry over to Sunday as well. We had the likes of Antonelli able to overtake Liam Lawson, Leclerc not able to do so, Hamilton doing his best on the same strategy as George Russell, but whereas Russell climbs to second, Hamilton's there in 8th. It feels frustrating. Like there should have been more here for them.
Yeah, and the worst part is the issue isn't obvious. There isn't something that I think you could point to and immediately go, Hamilton, shock of a race. Wasn't that bad. Yeah, he had that lockup, but I don't think that lockup cost him anything. He ended up pretty much where I expected him to be. The fact that he got in front of Leclerc, I actually thought was credit to him. I wasn't expecting him to beat Leclerc, even though he did so awfully try and hand that place back at the line, which was quite funny to watch him slow down and then fail to hand it back. I guess the thought counts, which is good.
Flat out right until like 100 meters before the line go, yeah, I'll back off now. I tried. I really tried.
You can't say I didn't back off.
And it's over P8 for 4 and 2 points. I'm really trying not to swear. It's so goddamn sad, man.
Yeah, who cares?
Come on.
Charles Leclerc doesn't got care. He's like, whatever.
Yay, 4 points rather than 2 as he watches Verstappen get another Grand Slam.
Oh, God, that man's career is in the toilet. The issue is the car just seemed to lose all the ability it carried through on Friday. Now, there was some differences between Friday and Sunday. The weather, it was warmer on Friday. The wind wasn't as intense throughout certain parts of the racetrack. It was much cooler on the race day. And we know that the Ferrari actually thrives quite well in hotter temperatures. But it looks like some issues are still existing in that Ferrari. We saw Lewis Hamilton very early on pulling out of the slipstream of the cars in front of him. I don't know if that was simply to keep the tyres in check, to cool the engine, but no one else was doing that. It was a cool race day. Why he wasn't able to sit behind the cars in front of him in DRS consistently is a worrying factor for Ferrari and their top-end speed. It looked like they have that top-end speed, but they can't get out the corners fast enough to make sure they're close enough to actually execute on that top-end speed. We heard that Lawson's engine was clipping at the end of the start-finish straight, and Leclerc had serious straight-line speed over Lawson. But they're not close enough. They cannot get close enough in the slipstream to make anything happen. And what's the point of having a car in a straight line if you're starting from an extra 500 meters behind him? It's irrelevant. You got no game there, son. So really tricky day for Ferrari to turn a 10th and 12th into an 8th and 9th, and you beat a car that DNF'd in front of you, and Fernando Alonso had a penalty for jumping the start. It don't look good. Hajar was the only car they legitimately beat today after where they were starting. Hajar didn't have a good race in comparison to his teammates, so it says a lot for you. Really, really big, stinky poo-poo day for Ferrari this was. Let's hope it's one to forget.
Now, Harry, appreciate you. You need to depart in a moment or so. So before we get to driver of the day, do you just want to have a quick laugh at Ferrari?
Yeah, terrible. Just like really. Do you know what? As people often say, it's the hope that kills you. And that is always the case for Ferrari. 1-2 in FP1 or FP2, whatever it was on Friday. And now 8th and 9th.
Oh, Ferrari. Oh, Ferrari. Let's go to driver of the day, shall we?
The verdict is in. You're the driver of the day. You're the driver of the day. You're good at driving.
Sam, it was Carlos Sainz that got the vote from the public. Do you agree with them?
I'd like to. He was sensational. He is up there. There's a few drivers that I want to give credit to: Lawson, Sainz, Russell, but I've got to go for Max Verstappen to pull out a grand slam like that. The pace, just the fact he set that fastest lap on lap 51 or whatever it was is just mind blowing. How good this guy is in a car that was not the most dominant car. Yes, the cards fell his way, but he was there to take hold of it. So for me, Max is driver of the day.
Harry.
Yeah, all the options Sam said there. I'll give it to Liam Lawson because the driver that started this year so terribly, I feel like deserves some credit here, and he drove really well today. Obviously didn't quite convert from where he started, but he's in a racing bull, and he held up his car that he used to have in race 1 was behind him for the entirety of the race. So superb drive by Lawson.
I had 3 contenders, and in a rather boring fashion, they all finished on the podium. But I also landed with Max Verstappen as my driver of the day. Let's move to worst driver of the day.
Get in the bin. Worst driver of the day. Bin. Worst driver of the day. You suck at driving.
Piastri.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry. He's had driver of the day plenty of times this season, so I don't feel too bad, but I didn't think very hard on this one.
Can't argue.
Shout out to Alex Albon as well for just murdering Colapinto.
Where's the gap, son? What are you looking at?
And also shout out to the barely moving chicane of Lance Stroll. Like, that's great work.
Yeah. Really good stuff from that backside of the team there.
Backside.
Yeah, that's where the poop comes from.
Big brain Strat.
Bob, we're gonna need you to box for wet. What? It's not even raining out. What are you talking about? Yeah, and Bob, if you get a chance, let your teammate pass you. What? He crashed out. He's not even in the race.
What have you got, Harry?
I might just continue to keep giving it to this driver and team combo, but Haas and Esteban Ocon again.
So good.
You're not allowed to pitch unless it's lap 1.
Are they doing it for laughs now? Why only at the end or the very start of the race can this man have new tyres? It's not fair. So I go for him. It didn't work out. He had to let Behrman pass afterwards.
I'm going to keep it short because I had that as my big brain Strat as well, but it was kind of worth it in that I don't think he was going to score points if he didn't do it. Like, I think it was worth a go with how long the tyres were running in this race. It was just, otherwise he would have finished probably where he was anyway. So give it a go. Sometimes it will work out, as it has done for Ocon a few times this year, but this just wasn't one of those where it did. But some of these other teams I think should be considering this sort of strategy. It might pay off. Sam?
You got to laugh at them for getting disqualified for a issue with the car when it was still so bad.
Yeah, at least be quick and get.
If you break the rules, just do it to be fast. That was mine as well. So I'll go for something a little bit different. I'm going to go for Russell leading the line and running super long on the hards, which I think set him up brilliantly for the end of the Grand Prix.
A very good shout indeed. Harry sadly needs to leave us at this point, but before you do, a moment of the race.
Fernando Alonso admitting he did something wrong. I almost fell off my chair. Yeah. Admitting a mistake and apologizing. I was like, whoa, son, are we feeling well? Because that's not usual for him. So I'll go for that.
I think that's a good shout. Myself and Sam will give our moments of the race a little bit later on in the episode. We've covered off a lot of the top 10, but we haven't spent a lot of time yet, Sam, on Racing Bulls. And they had a great day. They're kind of in a battle with Williams maybe for 5th in the championship, and Williams have still managed to outscore them thanks to Carlos Sainz's podium, but double points finish for them. Lawson with a career best 5th place, and Isaac Hadjar also just about in the points in 10th. They look pretty good.
Surprisingly so. It seems like straight lines and heavy braking is what suits this car. And for once, Liam Lawson hasn't crashed into someone. He's had a fight with Yuki Tsunoda. At Baku. He's not crashed into someone or something. And it's worked out because what a drive for Liam Lawson. We have spent a long time this season, I think fairly so, giving him some stick. He has had some poor performances. He has been the cause of a few incidents. He has been in the wars a little bit. But to turn up to Baku and go wheel to wheel with many of the top runners and hold them off, in the Ferraris, in Norris, Tsunoda, who I'm sure is so annoyed that he's having his best Grand Prix of the season, to still be beaten by one of the Racing Bulls must be so frustrating, the car that he was in the previous season. But Lawson was phenomenal. The car works. They set it up so brilliantly to just be really tough to overtake in a straight line. And the fact that this DRS train was being led by Lawson, lap after lap after lap, no DRS support for him. And yet he's holding off a Red Bull, a McLaren, 2 Ferraris, who all have DRS, and none of them seemingly can get close. I do feel sorry for Norris, because I wonder if that was swapped around, that maybe Norris could have got the move done on Lawson. But he played it brilliantly. Took advantage of the fact that his tyres were warmer when Tsunoda came out the pit lane, got that move done immediately, and that was crucial. The gap that he built up to in 2 seconds just allowed that bigger breathing room as well. And effectively, by defending from Tsunoda, he was keeping Norris and Hamilton and Leclerc behind him, and it worked fantastically well. So Racing Bulls can go away happy. The fact that their worst driver, who is not usually Hadjar, but today it was, still finishes in the points on a bad day for him. It's just sensational. They must be gutted to look at the order and go, wow, we've scored so many points. How are Williams in 3rd? How have they got that many points more than us still? Like, what do we have to do? But yeah, brilliant day for them. They'll walk away very happy. Let's see what they can do for the rest of the season. I don't know how many more tracks suit this style. Maybe Vegas is the next chance they have to throw something up.
I'm not sure, but I mean, look at Hadjar's podium at Zandvoort. Like, it's possible that this car is actually just pretty good at most tracks at this point in the season. And even though in terms of Williams, like that they've lost points to them today, and not many points, they have at least gained some really good ground on Sauber, who haven't scored, and Aston Martin, who haven't scored as well. This, I think, is another example of how important qualifying is in 2025. The midfield is so close now that, based on how long the tyres are going in some of these races and how difficult it can be to make overtakes, if you can nail qualifying, you have the opportunity to hold on to at least some of those spots. So I think pace-wise today, Lawson and Hadjar, I don't think there was anything in it. I think they were as quick as each other. But, and ironically, this is where Hadjar has really thrived so far this year, is he's been the one that's more often than not got the most out of qualifying. Lawson's been the one who's maybe struggled to get out of Q1 or Q2. And I've said it in reverse, where Hadjar's had a good finish. And I've said, I'm not sure his pace over Lawson was actually that different, but the qualifying position is what's deciding it here. I think we've had the reverse of that situation today, where Lawson He's able to, as a result of being pretty slippery in a straight line, he's able to hold off Tsunoda, sort of get out in front, whereas Hadjar is he's forced into a somewhat battle with the Ferraris who got past him fairly comfortably, but he's losing time because he's not focused on just outright pace. But that's fair play to Lawson. And I've criticized Lawson a lot this year for, again, not pace related, but some of his situational race by race, sort of side by side racing has been questionable. I think he's been one of the worst drivers on the grid when it comes to that wheel to wheel racing. Today, he was excellent. He positioned that car, I think, pretty much faultlessly when it came to defending into turn one, or even just ensuring he didn't need to defend properly into turn one. I think he nailed it. So this was a really big opportunity for Lawson to show RB why he should be there for another year. I put him under pressure midweek as a result of that. I thought this would be a really good opportunity for him. And I didn't even know how big of an opportunity it might be because he's defending against the very car he was in earlier this year. And he's passed the test with flying colours. So well done to Liam Lawson, and well done to Racing Bulls. A very, very impressive result. In terms of the rest of the midfield, Sam, we saw 6 different teams score points today. So we've got the 4 main big teams at the front, and then the 2 teams that we've already discussed, Williams and Racing Bulls, picking up the rest of the points. But that does leave us 4 teams without any points today. So that's Haas, that's Alpine, that's Aston Martin, and that's Sauber. I'll leave it up to you as to which direction you want to go with this, but anything catch your eye within that group?
Well, we can laugh at Alpine, right? We're just straight off the mark. So bad. We always have a slow team. We always have a team that's last. But good Lord, the fact that they were dueling for 18th and 19th and maybe, 15 seconds off the rest of the pack at that point, just abysmal from Alpine. The one that I felt was a miss, and I think had a good Grand Prix and got a little unlucky in how things played out, was Bortoletto. It was Hulk that obviously made the collision right at the start of the Grand Prix by trying to go around the outside of that chicane. And I think Bortoletto had a really good race. His strategy was good. It looked like at one point he could be challenging Hadjar for that final point, but I think the Racing Bulls just had too much in it. He had a good race. I was quite pleased with how he went, especially when the likes of Alonso has picked up this penalty for jumping the start, and Stroll was quite literally strolling. It felt like this was a good opportunity for him. It just didn't go his way. But Haas and Alpine, so far from it. I don't feel like they were ever in contention for points at any point, either driver at any point for me. Ocon, of course, with the disqualification, had a lot more to do. But even though I thought Behrman drove well, it felt like the car never had the ability to get close. And maybe that's slightly worrying. Hopefully they've turned a lot of their attention now fully to everything next year and they're not trying to work things out. They know what they're doing. But this is the kind of race that is going to make or break where you finish in that midfield. And 2 teams have really prospered today. Another couple have really struggled.
Yeah, I think Bortoletto's race was pretty solid. And I think 11th place was actually the maximum he could have got from this Grand Prix. This was, I think, just the day where Sauber were outclassed by Racing Bulls and Williams when it comes to that midfield fight. So I didn't quite agree with the way Sauber attacked this strategically. I thought they went the wrong way with Bortoletto because he started on the hard tyre, but pit after 26 laps, which put him, after a couple of laps of clean air, that put him directly in the Lance Stroll train that was very quickly forming. Now, he eventually got by because of the fresh tyres and Stroll ended up pitting. That cost him way too much time. And the good news for him is it didn't matter whatsoever because the top 10 was so far clear that I don't think it would have made a difference to his finishing position. But in terms of his overall race and how close he could have got to Hadjar, I think that was the wrong call from Sauber, but a solid race from Bortoletto nonetheless.
The commentary called that out, didn't they? That Bortoletto could be really important to how that group filtered through because he was on the hard tyre. So they expected him to be a little slower, but being out for much longer. And then as they were saying that, he comes into the pit lane. He does half the race on the mediums.
I just didn't understand it. Like at that point, the train that was behind Lance Stroll was pretty well formed. And there were cars that I felt were quicker than Stroll that could not make an overtake to the point where I thought, at the very least, Bortoletto, even if he could get through, it was going to take a little bit of time to do so. I just don't understand why he'd be put back into that. Because if he stays out for a few more laps, I'm pretty convinced he's got the pace to get ahead of Stroll, as in when he comes in for his pit, Stroll hasn't pitted at this point, he'll still come out ahead of Stroll. That's what Hadjar did. The exact same strategy that Hadjar did. And I thought he'd do the same thing. It was a bit weird, I thought. But with Haas, I think they had more pace again than what they were able to show. Ocon was difficult to judge because he was on that weird strategy. But Behrman, I've said this so frequently this year. I think Behrman had good pace. And as soon as he wasn't in the wake of another car, he showed it. He had the fastest lap for a good number of laps in this Grand Prix. As soon as he went in for medium tyres, he looked pretty good. But the problem is he was stuck behind Colapinto, who was forming a train. And as soon as Colapinto pit and eventually was boffed out the way by Alex Albon, he was just stuck in the Lance Stroll train. It was only really when he took his pit stop that he was able to go, okay, I've actually got some all right pace now. And he closed up well to Bortoletto and to Alex Albon. I think he had the pace to be probably 11th on the day, which is very Ollie Behrman for this season. But they have to sort out these qualifying woes, Haas, because they're just starting too far down the grid.
Yeah, I think you see where the likes of Hadjar are regularly put in the car, or Albon, who is having a good weekend, is so often now featuring in Q3. But how, I'm sure you, Mr. Statman, would know how regularly a Haas is actually getting into Q3 in comparison to the rest of the teams. It must be far lower, even than Sauber, who have jumped them quite comfortably, it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's where they need to sort things out, because as soon as they get into some clean air, I think they're pretty competitive, but they're a minute behind by that point. Alex Albon, we've already referenced this, where his teammate was on the podium. He had a really tough weekend out in Q1 as a result of going into the inside wall at turn 1. Was going to start 20th until Ocon's disqualification, so starts 19th in this race. Goes for a weird strategy.
Yeah, weird.
I didn't understand this.
I had no idea what they were doing. I thought they were copying what Ocon was essentially doing and going hard straight away under the safety car to try and run all the way to the edge. But they weren't. He went on some mediums and then didn't have any of the pace that I thought he might have had by using the softer of the compounds. He just didn't go anywhere.
I thought this race was again ruined by qualifying because, and I made this point in the qualifying review, it feels to me, like based on what I could see in terms of the data, that Albon and Williams decided to change their strategy overnight, Friday to Saturday. They were very quick in the first and final sector on Friday. We get to Saturday, they are very quick in that middle sector. And I think that was, for overall race pace, the better way to go. But it relied on a good qualifying position, because if you don't get a good qualifying position with that type of setup, you are going to struggle to make overtakes out there. I think that's why it works so well for Carlos Sainz and would have worked well for Alex Albon if he'd qualified well. Because again, I think his pace was pretty good. Like, he had that 10-second penalty that only cost him a position, I think, in the end. But starting so far back, getting involved in that incident, his race was kind of ruined before it started, I thought.
Williams need to clear this up. They have not had a weekend where both cars have been right with each other, doing well for quite some time now. I can only think of maybe one or two scenarios this whole season where they've both been in the points or regularly fighting for points around each other. So many of the teams are, usually with 2 or 3 cars around them fighting with each other. Alonso and Stroll, whilst we know Stroll isn't up to Alonso's match, more often than not, there's only a couple of cars that sit between them. The same with Haas. They regularly finish right next to each other. And even Racing Bulls, you saw today, whilst Hadjar was having a poor Grand Prix, in comparison to his teammate, he's still in the points. So Williams seems to not be able to do this. It's one or the other on a more extreme version than anything we're seeing up and down the grid. And it is costing them, despite, I think, now being over, or just under, 100 points for the season.
Yeah, I think this one was on Albon rather than the team. Like, I think he has the capability to do what Sainz did in qualifying.
Agreed.
And just blew it. But the 10-second time penalty versus Colapinto is slam dunk for me as well, by the way.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't even need to discuss it. It was that bad. He just drove into the guy.
It's not on.
No.
He is not anywhere close to being in a position where he's deserving of space there.
It's penalty points. It's a slam dunk 10-second. And they made it nice and quick as well. We actually got a nice, quick and efficient decision.
Yes, I did want to compliment that as well. They got to the decision really quickly, which was great and unusual. And it's bad that it's unusual, but well done to the stewards for that, at least.
Did the same with the jump start as well.
Yeah.
Genuinely quick and efficient. Well done.
Miraculous, right? I did want to say one thing quickly on Colapinto. I think he raced quite well.
I was pleased with his performance, and he's had a couple of good ones recently. Monza was also an improvement for him. Since the summer break, it has been a step in the right direction.
He was having a better job of keeping drivers behind, and he was the front of the train because the Alpine is awful. But so was Gasly a bit further back. Drivers, I think, found it easier to get by Gasly than they did Colapinto. And the fact that even with the collision that obviously cost him a lot of time, they're still battling at the end of this Grand Prix. I think Colapinto was quite comfortably the better Alpine this weekend, which I appreciate isn't much of a prize, but I think he was the better one.
He had the worst strategy of the two of them, I think, as well, because I think they were on alternate strategies. I know that Gasly finished on mediums, Colapinto finished on hards.
Yes.
Which is part of the reason why they swapped.
But I think Colapinto's strategy could have worked because, again, drivers were finding it difficult to overtake him, even if he wasn't quick. So even if he doesn't stay ahead of Albon in that battle, he has a good chance of keeping Ocon, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Stroll behind as soon as they've pit. Yeah. They weren't going to undercut him at that stage. So he could have finished, I think, if it weren't for that collision, I think he could have finished like 14th, which I know isn't much, but in an Alpine,
in a power track where you need an engine that they don't have. Yeah, this is good signs for Colapinto. He's got to keep it up. They can't speed these couple of races. He needs a few more like this. But yeah, good signs.
Yeah, and not one to discuss today, but if Flavio Briatore is to be believed, which he never is, it's a battle between him and Paul Aaron for the seat next year. So,
of course it is. Another name in the mix.
Can't wait for someone else to get it now.
Just there'll be a whole different game comes in. Just Alonso's back.
Flav will drive it himself, probably. Declare himself first driver and team principal. Do you see the comments about qualifying, how both drivers tried to be PK?
No.
I saw some comments on the interweb about, of course, Renault and Alpine known for some tactics in the past, if you go back to 2008 Singapore. And obviously it's not relevant because it's a qualifying session rather than the race, but of course they crashed in the same area. It's like they're both trying to be the PK in the PK versus
I'll help you. No, I'll help you. Oh, we can't even do that properly.
Good. I have to say my moment of the race, Sam, fits in quite nicely with the discussion that we just had before the break. My moment of the race is the Alpines battling over 18th and 19th for no reason whatsoever.
It is a sad state of affairs at that team. That's all they can do. That is all they can do. But yeah, funny.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, it is funny. I had a couple that I'm going to go with. One was, I mentioned it earlier, Smooth Operator being played across the pit lane with Carlos Sainz. I just thought that was really, really nice.
Martin Garrix at work.
Yeah, loved it. But for me, I'm sure we'll get a lot of this from the Discord as well. But Piastri sitting trackside with a marshal's phone watching the Grand Prix. I loved it. It's just a cool guy. It's just chill.
I'm so annoyed though, because if we just stay on with Piastri for like 30 more seconds, we get the crash between Albon and Colapinto from his POV.
And he's turning to the camera and pulling a face. One of those again.